What exactly is happening in Congo? Well, I know you have so many questions just like me. A few weeks back, we saw pictures of 3 American citizens surfacing on our social media platforms. America is 8,405 miles away from Congo. So why would these 3 citizens of America move all that distance just to attempt a coup in Congo? What could be behind it and what exactly is going on? I'm going to take you back to history so that you get to know how it all started and how we reached this stage. Sit back, let me dive you into history. Hello everyone, welcome to Jet Travels, and today we are diving into an intriguing topic, and this is how the early prehistory of the Congo Basin ties into the country's current political instability. Understanding this connection requires us to explore the deep past, long before modern borders and nations existed, and to trace how these ancient dynamics echo into today's challenges. So let us start with the basics. The Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, is located in the heart of Africa. It is the second largest country on the continent and is home to one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth. But it's also a place that has faced decades of political instability, violence, and economic hardships. To understand why, we need to go back, way back, to the region's prehistory. And that's into the early human inhabitants, which is around 90,000 to 120,000 years ago. The Congo Basin was already a hub for human activity. Early humans lived here, making use of the lush environment. Archaeological evidence shows that these hunters and gatherers relied on the abundant plant life, rivers, and wildlife for survival. The region's dense rainforests shaped their way of life, offering resources but also challenges like disease and limited farmland. Fast forward to around 3,000 years ago, and we see the arrival of the Bantu-speaking peoples. This massive migration transformed the region. The Bantu were skilled in agriculture, ironworking, and pottery. They cleared forests, cultivated crops, and established small settlements. This period marked the beginning of organized communities, trade, and cultural exchange in the Congo. As time passed, these small settlements grew into larger and more complex societies. By the 13th century, we see the emergence of powerful kingdoms like the Kingdom of Congo, and this was a highly organized society with a centralized government, a legal system, and a thriving trade network. They traded ivory, copper, and other goods with distant regions, including Europe. But these early kingdoms also faced challenges, which was competition over resources, conflicts with neighboring groups, and shifts in trade routes that created instability. This internal strife weakened some kingdoms and made them vulnerable to outside influences. Fast forward in the late 19th century, King Leopold II of Belgium had a vision. He wanted Belgium to have a colony to increase its prestige and wealth. But instead of acting on behalf of Belgium, Leopold acquired the Congo as his personal property. This happened at the infamous Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, where European powers divided Africa among themselves without consulting any African leaders. Leopold's claims were legitimized under the guise of humanitarianism. He promised to bring civilization, Christianity, and a trade to the region. In reality, it was the beginning of a brutal exploitation. The territory became the Congo Free State, but it was anything but free. Leopold's primary goal was profit. The Congo was rich in natural resources, especially rubber, ivory, and minerals. To extract these resources, Leopold's regime used forced labor on a massive scale. Villages were burned, families torn apart, and people brutally punished if they didn't meet quotas. Hands were infamously cut off as a form of terror and control. Estimates suggest that up to 10 million Congolese people died during this period, either directly from violence or indirectly from famine and disease caused by the exploitation. This period is often described as one of the worst humanitarian disasters in history, and its effects were devastating. In 1965, Joseph Mobutu seized power and ruled with an iron fist for over 3 decades. Mobutu, who renamed the country Zaire, looted billions of dollars while his people lived in poverty. His corrupt regime weakened the nation, leaving it vulnerable to exploitation and conflict. In 1994, the Rwanda genocide marked a turning point. After the massacre of nearly 1 million Tutsis, Hutu militias fled into eastern Congo. This mass migration brought weapons and chaos into Congo, igniting what would become Africa's Great War. After that, we witnessed the First Congo War that began in 1996, when neighboring countries led by Uganda and Rwanda invaded Congo to overthrow Mobutu. Laurent Kabila took power, but peace was fleeting. By 1998, the Second Congo War erupted, which involved 9 countries and dozens of armed groups. It became the deadliest conflict since World War II, with over 5 million deaths, mostly from hunger and disease. Well, it didn't stop at that. We now witness the real battle for resources in 1998. So, to understand this, we need a bit of context. The war officially began in 1998, just a year after the First Congo War. The DRC, formerly Zaire, had just seen the overthrow of dictator Mobutu Sese Seko by Laurent Kabila, but Kabila's new government struggled to maintain control over this massive, resource-rich country. The DRC is home to vast deposits of valuable resources like gold, diamonds, tin, tungsten, and coltan, a mineral essential for electronics. So these resources, instead of bringing prosperity, unfortunately, they became a curse. They attracted foreign powers, rebel groups, and the multinational corporations, all seeking a piece of the pie. The war involved a staggering number of players. On one side, you had DRC Congo government, backed by countries like Angola, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. On the other side, there were rebel groups supported by Rwanda and Uganda. But it didn't stop there. Over 20 different armed factions, some local and others foreign, joined the fray, each with its own agenda. Why so many factions? Well, it's because the DRC's resources were up for grabs. Control over mines and trade routes meant wealth and power. And for many groups, the war became less about ideology and more about securing economic gains. Let's talk about how resources fueled the conflict. The DRC's minerals weren't just sitting in warehouses. No, they were being extracted, smuggled, and sold on the global market. Rebel groups and foreign armies controlled mining areas, using forced labor and exploiting local communities. Coltan, for instance, became infamous during the war. This mineral is a key component in making mobile phones and other electronics. Global demand for coltan skyrocketed, and much of it came from conflict zones in the DRC. Armed groups used the profits to buy weapons, perpetuating the cycle of violence. The fight for resources came at a terrible cost to the Congolese people, because over 5 million lives were lost, mostly from disease and starvation caused by the war's disruptions. Millions more were displaced, fleeing violence and exploitation. Local communities often bore the brunt of resource extraction. Entire villages were destroyed to make way for mining operations. Child labor and slavery were rampant. People who resisted were often met with brutal violence. But this wasn't an African conflict anymore. It had global implications. Many of the resources extracted from the DRC ended up in products sold worldwide. Multinational corporations and foreign governments were accused of turning a blind eye to the origins of these these materials. You may ask yourself, how does the war continue in Congo till this day? Well, Congo's wealth is scarce. It holds over 60% of the world's cobalt, a key ingredient in batteries for electric cars and gadgets. As the world pushes for a green future, the demand for cobalt has skyrocketed. But at what cost? Child labor, deadly working conditions, and environmental destruction, which I can term as the green gold rush. In 2025, the eastern regions of Congo remain a battleground. Rebel groups like the M23, Mai militias, and others fight for control of these resource-rich areas. Neighboring countries, including Rwanda and Uganda, are accused of supporting some of these groups, further fueling the conflict. But the real victims are the people. Families forced to flee their homes, children torn from their schools, women subjected to unimaginable violence, and over 6 million people are displaced within Congo, a humanitarian crisis on a staggering scale. The world watches, sometimes sending aid, sometimes offering words of support, but the underlying issues, corruption, resource exploitation, and foreign interference remain unaddressed. And so, the cycle continues. Innocent lives are lost, dreams are shattered, and the question remains, how did we let this happen? But it's not too late. We can rewrite history, but we can demand change. We can hold companies accountable for sourcing conflict-free minerals. We can pressure governments to prioritize peace over profit, and we can support the voices of the Congolese people who are fighting for a brighter future. The Congo story is far from over. It's a story of pain, yes, but it's also a story of hope and the unyielding spirit of its people. Let us not turn away. Let us stand with them. At least that is when we shall see change. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you next time. Please keep tuned on the channel and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any single video about history.